What's up, my friends? There you go. But today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make a bass like this. Hola, hola. Let's fast forward. The key. Right, my goal in life is to help as many of you guys that DJ make the music that you envision and that you can fucking play out. So that when you play that shit out, you get people coming up, yo, what song is this? And you can tell them it's an ID. And I think one of the biggest things that I'll say to this day that some people will always debate me on is if your low end isn't right, no one's gonna care. And I truly believe that because I work with big artists. I've been to their shows. And I go more as an educational thing now because, you know, I'm a dad. So to me, I notice that when certain tracks have low end that sucks ass, the crowd doesn't react the way they should versus when the low end hits, subconsciously, it's like they're moving like, So if that's something you want to do, please join me. All right, the first thing is the kick. Kick is very important. I would say probably about half the fight. If the kick doesn't sound right, your bass might sound good, your sub bass might sound good, but you will not perceive it as it's sounding good. So make sure you're using high quality samples. There are three things I'm looking for: tone of the kick, length of the kick, and if possible, key of the kick. Okay. This kick is going to end at the halfway mark. It's done like that on purpose because it allows you to get a sidechain on the sub bass that will make it sound offbeat or like a reverse bass, like a woo-ah, woo-ah, woo-ah. Second thing you're going to need is a proper sub. So how do you create it? Well, for the sub, the simplest thing that you can use is a sine wave. I'm going to show you guys the example today where we're going to use a sine and it's going to sound great, and where we might have to use something different like a distorted sine or a saturated sine or a saw that is filtered, okay? But if the bass on top has a lot of power already and you don't need to saturate the sine wave or push it harder, then perfect. All you're going to be really doing with the sub bass is setting a sine, ram face down. This moves to the left for now. We might have to switch it later on. And from there, we're going to activate the sub bass every 1/4. So every time the kick hits, so that it's predictable in its phase, which is the position of where it starts or where it's at as it's going through its cycles. Okay. That just means as it's going through the journey, because as it hits the right, it just keeps repeating. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, from there, let's mono legato that. And by default, we're going to have this. Now, by default, we go with the sine because it's a fundamental, it only has the fundamental waveform in it. It's a virgin waveform. Very, very smooth, very simple. And it only gives us what we need, which is the sub power. But right now, it's playing too high up. So in order to change that, in order to solve this issue, all I'm going to do is tell Serum that every time the note hits here, I want it to play 3 octaves below. And now we're in sub-range territory, which is going to be 30 hertz to 60 hertz. Okay. From here, I'm going to use Kickstart. It's a very affordable $14 sidechain that makes me feel like I can go to Starbucks, buy a latte, or go to the bar and get a $7 beer and not feel broke. I like it a lot. I use it for everything, so it's super cool. From there, I'm going to route the kick into it through here. And now I can see the kick, set audio, and there we go. Now, if the kick is in a key, I can do something that a lot of people will make you feel less for, or they'll try and make themselves feel superior to you because they understand that they can get their sub in phase with the kick if the kick has a very stable key to it. As I said, the kick is going to be in the key of F. So that means if my sub is hitting F and the kick, right, it's bounced down, it's not really changing, it's not coming out of an analog synth, a machine that's constantly changing, then it's going to have a predictable phase that I can choose to line up with the sub. And the way I do that is by moving this guy here to the right and just look at the waveforms as I do it. Line it up. And if you noticed, the energy, low end energy just got crazy, right? Now, this is fair, and you could definitely do that if you're trying to be an elitist and all that, or as I call it, because it seems like people always use this as like, oh. But The main thing for me, right, sometimes the kick might not have a key. Sometimes this is not needed to get an intended effect. So what I'm going to do is sidechain it. Now, this technique is very valid as well if we're sidechaining. And you know that crossover point right there, where there's a bit of interaction between the kick and the thing you're sidechaining. Well, if you can get it in phase there, or at least try to have it line up, then definitely do it. So right now it's lining up, right? So you're either going up or down with the wave, as you can see. So if you're up there, that means you're positive polarity, and down means you're negative polarity. If you have the total inverse and both sounds collide at inverses, they cancel each other out, especially if they're both taking up the same frequency range and are very similar in tone, which the low end will always be the same in tone. So especially sub. Okay. So from there, we're done here. Now it's time for the rolling bass. Okay. For the rolling bass, you're going to set a 16th, right? Like so. We're going to do this here. Boom, 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 boom. And yeah, you can choose to omit the first note if you want. But if you don't want to, that's fine. We're not going to choose to, but it's most likely going to get sidechained because it will fight and interact with the click, the transient of the kick. And that usually becomes an issue as you start to master the song and as you start to get picky and get into that realm of stuff, then you will notice that usually that's not a good call. Okay, from here, I'm going to be playing the rolling bass. Okay, I'm going to lower this down to -3 where the bass is. I'm going to re-trigger it for now. Move to the left. I'm going to legato it. And then I'm going to use a filter, which is going to remove the high frequencies from the right to the left. And I'm going to choose to bring it back on my terms. In essence, I'm going to shape it and make it sound glorious. This makes it so the filter is more strict, allowing less highs out, which gives it more of that cutting vibe. And now I have the rolling bass. And I grab this sidechain, put it there. And since the sub is there already, I have to respect the space of it. So I'm going to cut the lows out to here. And we're going to get this. Okay. Move this to the right. There we go. Now, this is where I'm going to teach you something. Now, some people like to stay here because they like the grit of this, right? The rolling bass by itself, very gritty. Right, very, very gritty here. However, it's invading the space of the sub by default. Like, they're going to fight. Now, before me, because I'm a sound designer trying to make you guys sound good, you know, that's my job. I twiddle, I spend late nights. My wife gets mad at me for working all the time because I love what I do, but it's because I'm trying my best to just make the best sounds for you so you guys can sound great out of the fucking box. But I was reading this book by Rob Poppin, which is a synthesizer book, where he talks about bass and says you should never have two waves, or let's say you're making a synth patch. You shouldn't have, let's say, 3 saws both hit at -3 octaves because they're going to interact. That's everything. It's all about space, right? It's better if you already have one that's low to have another one that's up an octave above that. So we can follow the same theory with the sub bass by moving this here. And now look how it sounds. I'm not even going to EQ this shit out. Fucking glorious. Fucking glorious. Ain't it? I don't need to do a lot. Remember, the sub's only taking that bottom portion out. It's nowhere here. And if you find it might, then just cut out some stuff there. Okay. Now, rolling bass, I am going to sidechain a bit because it will fight with the kick. But this sounds fucking great. It's all about leveling now. My sub and kick are louder than my sub and rolling bass are louder than the kick. And you got to feel the bounce. Perfecto, baby. Okay. Now, if you want to go down 1 octave, you can. But now you have to do the EQ work. Probably bring this up higher. Good to go. As I'm doing all of this, I am checking span between my sub and this bass. If I go lower, boom, no sub. At the sub, there it is. Now, if you see there's this gap here, and that gap is a little dangerous. So I'm gonna bring back my EQ a bit, see if I can fill it up. There it is. EQ down here, trying to remove that low end as much as possible. Now we get that. Now with the rolling bass, I can choose to allow more of the highs out. It sounds like a blob right now. That's because envelope 1 needs to be brought down. And we need to shape it. Boom. Let's go. Okay, but to me, again, what sounds the best? I love that. Pull down the cutoff. Okay, so here, this is what I want you guys to work on right now. Setting this up. Change the square. Minus an octave. Get that sounding good. That sounding proper. Bring that up. Okay. Now, it's time to get a bit more pro, I would say. Okay. So, I'm going to bring this up, do this. There's a lot of fighting going on here. We got to tighten it up. Once we have it tightened up and EQ'd properly, now, again, I want you to be able to do that good because that is the foundation. If you can do what we just did before, you already sound like Emily Lenz and Charlotte DeWitt stuff because that's the basics of it. Now, if you're trying to get to the level of Space92 Maddix, Mary Vaughn, more like push shit, more process, then we must process, but get this foundation right first. You know, the way that I get it right, I will usually compare with other songs. It's when I do a tutorial, right, I'm going based on theory, which will get me to sound decent, not perfect, but decent enough to where you guys can see how to take it there. And depending on the kick, depending on the volumes of stuff, right? Say we go here, you're like, fuck yeah. Right? That's some echo. Then, you know, we get so far. It's at a ping pong. See what happens. Target more of the highs. There we go. Okay. But now, experiment with other waveforms. You know, check them all out. And finally add some detune unison so that you get width, put the ramp fees up. There you go. -2. Okay. Now from here is the part, once you nail all of that, you have it sounding pretty decent. Now I want you to process. Now I want you to process heavy. Okay? Because that's what all these guys are about, is fucking pushing shit hard. So let's try roar first. We'll put it on this guy. And roar is a multi-band distortion saturation unit. We can shape the sound. Let's say the mids, push them. There we go. The highs, push them. Here we go. The lows, push them. The drive, push it. Just get some fucking flavor out of there. Afterwards, EQ a bit if you have to. All right, gets a little too muddy. It's fine. Get the sound you want out of it. Move it. Play with your decay. Breathe. Have fun with it. So you get something you like. There we go. Compress on the group. Group it all. Compress. Not like that, but there's a plugin I like to use. I'm not sponsored by them, but if you like what you hear, what it does, I'll have a link in the description. It's essentially low end compression. I get to choose where. With this guy, let's say I feel there's too much knock on the kick, I can do this. Make it up a bit on solo. Turn it off. lose it a bit. Not bad, huh? Play around with the different types. Again, there's low end being presented, so let's remove it. You can choose a low shelf if you believe in that, or low cut. There we go. Turn into a square. Meh. Meh. There we go. Let's go. Bow. Okay. The other thing too is that, again, there's more to it. You definitely do crazy stuff like this and then push harder with like the roar distortion stuff. Let's say we try to do this. This will be a last example because I feel like it's just getting worse and worse every time. All right. Let's do this. Fucking hell. What's going on? All right. We're just pushing that rolling bass. Now let's say I do this. Sounds okay, but I'm pretty sure I'm missing a shit ton of low end. Mid lows. Then what do? Well, now this is where the saw or the sine wave gets fucking distorted or saturated, okay? Because now we need those frequencies. We need the homies. We need to increase the body count. So I'm gonna decide to push the sub a bit more like this. Now we bring the homies in. Body count up on the sine wave, man. Don't fuck it up. And also you can get a saw filtered like so. Remove any of the unnecessary highs we don't need. It's another way. Or rolling bass gets it. Really up to you. Dynamics, move those. There we go. We fucked it up. Okay. So it's a lot of processing on that top bass, but this system, right? You have your kick, you have your sub, and the rolling bass, right? Sub and rolling bass. Sub, you saw when you would need to do what we did. It's when the top bass gets fucked or you start doing shit like that, then you're going to have to support that rolling bass on top. If you don't do that, if you go the basic route we did, as you saw, that shit sounds glorious. Imagine with proper leveling and proper sitting down, you know, doing it right, taking your time and shit, how glorious it can sound. But that is the theory. That is the theory on how you get to sound like these guys, okay? And of course, the last step is the master. So one of the things I'm doing with Paradox 6 is I've been doing recreations, trying to get stuff sounding as best as possible to them. But one thing I can't give you is the master that they do, because these guys are mastering like fucking cocaine addicts, man. Like -4 loves, -5. So when you hear their tracks, there's a reason they sound that way. Whether you think it sounds shit or you think it sounds good, right? It sounds like that because of the mastering as well, which is something, again, I can't show. Well, you saw the example in the beginning of the video, which is a master track at -5 lufs. But again, that's why their music sounds that way, okay? And you will get that as well when you do your master as well, which will be for another video. But I hope this video helps. I hope this video gives you a little bit of an outline of what to do. Again, get the beginning part right, and then from there experiment like I was just doing with saturation on the rolling bass. And if you find you thin it out too much, that's where your sub can get saturated and you can grab mid-lows for it in the way that I showed you. Again, my goal is to help you guys make music that you can play out at your gigs. People go, what idea is that? You're like, I don't know. You can tell them it's your shit. They're going to ask you for it, and then you use your power, say, okay, give me another gig. That is the goal, man. Other than that, you guys take care and you guys have a great rest of your day.